Something strange is happening in Mason, Ohio, and no tournament press release can explain it away. Flags are already packed, chants are already being rehearsed, and inside the operations office of one of the biggest events on the entire tennis calendar, staff are bracing for a level of noise they did not create and cannot fully control. A 21-year-old with no Grand Slam title to her name is generating this kind of gravity before she has even stepped on court, and the tournament itself, in its own official announcement, chose to name her specifically. Stay with this, because what's coming is bigger than one player, one match, or one tournament. Call her Alex. Not a surname, just Alex. That's how an entire nation says it now, like she already belongs to them. In days, she walks into the Cincinnati Open, a tournament that did not need a new star. It already has Aryna Sabalenka, Mira Andreeva, Amanda Anisimova, Naomi Osaka, Elena Rybakina, defending champion Iga Swiatek. This is a draw that exposes everyone eventually, and yet out of that entire field, the tournament's own player announcement stopped to single out Alex, alongside Brazilian sensation João Fonseca, for having, in their own words, some of the most passionate and loudest supporters in the sport. Sit with that for a second. Out of a field full of legends, the institution itself is bracing specifically for her fans. That's not hype, some fan account invented. That's an organization admitting, on the record, that they've noticed something they can't fully control. The numbers behind this are almost hard to process. According to tournament figures, 2025 pulled in a record 285,571 fans from every state in the country and 65 nations around the world. For 2026, organizers are reportedly bracing for nearly 300,000 fans inside a newly rebuilt 40-acre site, following a renovation reported to cost around $260 million. Qualifying begins August 11th. Finals land August 23rd, and somewhere inside that massive rebuilt ecosystem, a Filipina walks in carrying the hope of a country that has waited generations for a moment exactly like this one. But here's where the real tension lives, and it's worth sitting with. None of this guarantees anything. Flags don't return serves, chants don't save match points. If Alex loses in the first round, all of this noise disappears overnight, and it becomes just another promising story that stalled the moment it mattered most. So why does anyone believe otherwise? Because this exact question was already put to the test weeks earlier in Washington, and the answer was almost violent in how clearly it arrived. Before that tournament even began, the chairman reportedly revealed that nearly 80% of ticket inquiries that month weren't about the event at all. They were about one specific question: when is Alex playing? That is not the kind of attention given to a player still building her name. That is the attention given to someone who has already become an event unto herself. Then she almost blew it. In her opening match against former world number 4 and Olympic gold medalist Zheng Qinwen, Alex dropped the first set, then fell behind in the second. For a moment, it looked exactly like the story everyone quietly feared, the hype outrunning the results. Then, without warning, something shifted. She clawed her way back, forced a decider, and dismantled Zheng 6-1 in the third set. Not a scare, a statement. And notice the order here, because it matters. The crowd got louder after that win, not before it. Belief that is earned survives losses. Belief that is only borrowed from hype does not. She kept earning hers, match after match, all the way to a final against Jessica Pegula, a former world number 3 and Grand Slam finalist who had spent years in rooms Alex was only just being invited into. Alex dropped the first set, then the skies opened and rain delayed the match. If you know tennis, you know rain delays are dangerous in a very specific, cruel way. They don't just pause a match, they pause a mind mid-fight and force it to sit alone with every doubt it was trying to outrun. Players have lost matches during rain delays without hitting a single extra shot, simply because their nerves gave way in the silence. So what did Alex do when the covers came off? She didn't blink. She took the second set, then closed out the third 6 games to love. Ruthless, almost merciless, against a former top 3 player in a final after a rain delay. And when the last ball landed, something happened that had never happened before in the history of the sport. She became the first Filipina to ever win a WTA tour-level singles title, an entire country's tennis history rewritten in one final set. But greatness doesn't reward you with rest. It rewards you with higher stakes, because every tournament from here on is no longer a chance to surprise people. It's a chance to disappoint them. Before a title, a deep run feels like magic. After a title, anything less than magic can start to feel like failure. And that is precisely the trap waiting for her in Cincinnati, on a stage far bigger than Washington ever was. Because this story didn't actually start there either. Rewind further to Wimbledon on grass, where the entire foundation of this phenomenon was built. Alex became the first player from the Philippines to ever reach the second week of a Grand Slam singles draw in the Open era. Not the first to win a round, the first ever to survive long enough to see the second week. Then came the moment that turned a good tournament into a legend in the making. On center court, one of the most intimidating stages in all of sport, she faced defending Wimbledon champion Iga Swiatek, and she beat her 7-6 in a first set tiebreak that stretched to 9 points, then 6-2 to close it out. Not a near upset. A win on center court over a defending champion. She later described looking into the stands and seeing what felt like a full house of Filipino supporters, despite Wimbledon tickets being some of the hardest to obtain anywhere in the world. Think about the logistics hidden inside that one detail. People organizing, people flying across the world, people finding their way into one of the most exclusive venues on the planet just to be near her when it mattered. That is not casual fandom, that is identity. And identity-based support behaves completely differently from results-based support. Results-based fans disappear the moment you lose. Identity-based fans show up anyway because they were never only cheering for a scoreline, they were cheering for what she represents. A country that has produced legendary boxers and basketball stars, but rarely, if ever, a tennis player capable of standing shoulder to shoulder with the very best in the world. A 5-week stretch on grass, a WTA 125 title in Birmingham, a semi-final in Berlin. Then that Wimbledon breakthrough pushed her all the way to a career-high ranking of world number 28. 12 months earlier, the conversation around her was cautious, quiet whispers about whether she could even crack the top 100. Now the conversation has shifted entirely, not whether she belongs in the top 30, but how much higher she's capable of climbing. When the WTA opened voting for its mid-season fan award, Star of the Swing, the results weren't close. She won with nearly 90% of the vote. That number doesn't happen from casual interest. That happens when an entire fan base mobilizes with urgency, usually reserved for something far bigger than a tennis poll. So here is Cincinnati, arriving at exactly the moment this story cannot afford to slow down. A record-breaking crowd expected, a freshly rebuilt, sprawling venue. A draw stacked with legends who have already broken bigger names than hers. And here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Every one of her biggest wins so far has raised the ceiling of what people now expect from the next one. And raised expectations are their own opponent, one that doesn't live on the other side of the net, but entirely inside her own head. Can she carry the weight of an entire country's hope into a draw filled with multiple Grand Slam champions? Can she manage the psychological shift from being the hunter to suddenly being the hunted, the player everyone studies instead of overlooks? Can she walk out in front of nearly 300,000 fans, many of them there specifically because of her, and still play like nobody is watching? Nobody knows. That's not a dodge. That's the actual truth, and it's exactly why this is worth watching, instead of assuming how it ends. Elite sport doesn't become gripping through guaranteed victory. It becomes gripping through uncertainty, wrapped around someone who has already proven she is capable of something extraordinary. If she were ranked 200 and unknown, a first-round exit would mean nothing. But she is not unranked, and she is not unknown. She is a champion now, a Grand Slam second-week competitor, a player who beat a defending Wimbledon champion on the most famous court in the sport. Which means every match from here forward carries weight. It did not carry a year ago. That weight will either forge her into something her country has never produced before, or it will become the exact pressure that stalls everything she has built. Maybe that's the real reason the flags keep multiplying wherever she goes. Not because people expect a guaranteed outcome, but because they've learned over and over that when things look darkest, down a set, down a break, sitting through a rain delay with a final slipping away, she has a way of finding something extra exactly when it matters most. That's not a guarantee, it's a pattern. And patterns like that are exactly what turn a good athlete into a phenomenon people organize their vacation days around. So when the lights come up in Cincinnati, when her name is finally called, and the first Philippine flag rises somewhere in that crowd of hundreds of thousands, followed by another and another, until the chant rolls through the stands like something rehearsed for days, even though nobody planned it at all. Remember how this actually started. Remember Washington, where 80% of the questions were about one player before she had even played a match. Remember the third set against Zheng, when a struggling comeback turned into a statement. Remember the rain delay against Pegula and the 6-love set that followed it. Remember center court and a defending champion who never saw it coming. None of that happened because a crowd willed it into existence. It happened because point after point, match after match, she kept finding a way to be the player worth flying across the world to watch. Cincinnati doesn't need her to already believe that. Cincinnati is simply the next place she has to prove it all over again, against players who have already beaten legends themselves, on a stage that has already broken bigger names than hers. Whether she wins the whole tournament or loses in the very first round isn't even the most interesting question anymore. The most interesting question is what she does in the moment, right before the pressure becomes unbearable. That split second between the crowd going silent and the ball leaving her racket. That is where every one of her biggest wins has actually happened, not in the celebration after, in that split second before. And in a few days, under the lights, in front of the loudest, largest crowd this tournament has ever assembled, we finally get to watch her walk back into that exact split second one more time. Nobody, not the analysts, not the bookmakers, not even her own team, can tell you what happens next. And that is exactly why an entire tennis world and an entire nation standing behind her simply cannot look away